John. Some of you may know me from my past life. I'm relatively new to DTC from this side, but I just concluded in January about a 40-year career with the Department of Defense as an Army officer, and then also as a civilian for many, many years working in the voluntary education programs of all the services. My last job being Dante's, director of Dante's for about the last 5 years, and now I'm with Grantham University. And why I wanted to mention that is because from that side of my life, I can say that John Harris is just a perfect example of all the wonderful things that you all do out there. And it should be no secret to you that every single institution here that serves the military, you are also serving the nation, because every survey that we ever did with folks, why did you join the military, or when they re-enlisted, why did you stay on, always listed in the top 3 reasons was to pursue my civilian education. So I want you to understand that when people talk about the national defense and patriotism, that you in your roles every day back at your colleges and universities and institutes around the country are truly contributing as much to the national defense as almost any other group in the United States. And the wonderful thing about people that go through our programs in the military, as John is a good example, is they come back as a much better civilian when they do finally come out. They had that wonderful military training, that experience of leadership, and then with your programs, they're much smarter, much more talented, perhaps much more skilled. So overall, you're helping America. I like to think of it as actually your programs as America's first economic stimulus program. So I really appreciate it from that standpoint. And certainly now from Grantham, we couldn't be prouder to have someone like John Harris as our distinguished graduate. You heard him talk about his background. He's very modest, but having been an Army officer back in the late 70s, or I should say the late 60s, late 70s, he was an Air Force type that was attached to Army units as a forward observer. These guys were basically grunts along with the rest of the Army troops if you're an Air Force forward observer. And he did that in Afghanistan. So he wasn't flying the friendly skies. He was down there where you could smell the enemy. So this is a man that's truly a patriot and has done a lot for the country over these years. And obviously he was a wonderful Grantham student. We're glad that he got a bachelor's degree. He's on his way to getting a master's degree. We thought so highly of him. We have recently hired him as one of our representatives for the National Guard and for one of our regions in the United States. So congratulations, John.
John Edmund Harris from Grantham University is going to speak with us next.
Did not know we were going to have to give a speech. First off, I wanted to thank Grantham University, Dr. Cropsey, Dr. Haas, Dr. Lanier, and Mr. Megan for selecting me for being an outstanding graduate, and I really appreciate that, although I did not see that coming. Let me take you back a little bit. In 1984, when I graduated high school, in fact, I was still in high school at the time, my father worked for Caterpillar Tractor Company, and they were in the midst of a giant strike, and it lasted for months and months and months, and I saw no way for my folks to help me through getting my education. So I joined the National Guard, and it was all that they promised it would be. They paid all the tuition and had all the benefits, and it was a good thing. It was a very good move. However, those of you that think you don't move around in the National Guard, well, you do, potentially, and I did. I moved further south and eventually wound up in New Orleans. But the bottom line was that I, too, had a transcript record that looked like criminal history with several universities, and, they like to not accept credits from other universities. Anyway, I go off on a tangent. But life got in the way. In fact, I got to the point where I was a senior in college and saw the light at the end of the tunnel and said, I can slow down a little bit. I can take a break. I see it. The end's right there. It's not a big deal. And I was a senior in college for 15 years. Honestly. Desert Storm got in the way. We had this little thing down in New Orleans called Katrina, maybe you've heard of it. That got in the way for months and months and months. In fact, it still affects many people down there. But Desert Storm, Operation Enduring Freedom, Iraqi Freedom, there was no list of excuses as to why it was impossible for me to go back and finish that degree. I would just remain a senior, and I used every single one of the excuses that I could come up with. Family, marriage, building a house, you name it. I used it. And then the bottom line was, I was not a college graduate with 26 years of service, and I joined the military to get a degree. And I didn't do it. So 3 years ago, I'm staring retirement in the face. And I still have these unused benefits. And around that same time, I became the state command chief for the Louisiana National Guard, which meant I would go around the units and I would talk to airmen and soldiers and I would say, hey, don't be a dummy. There's all kinds of education benefits out there. You should use those things. How bad would you feel if you left that money sitting on the table and you get out of the service and the whole time? That's exactly what I was doing. So 3 years ago, I said, that's it. Forget the excuses. I still have the family, and I still have the wife, and I still have hurricane duty every year. That's a gift that keeps on giving, is hurricane season down in New Orleans. But I still had the excuses, but this time I said, you know what, that's it. I'm going to finish. And so with the help, tremendous help of Grantham University, I did. I finished my bachelor's, and once again said, whew, I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm going to take a break. And thankfully, the admissions reps at Grantham said, we'll have none of that. You will get in a master's program, and so I am within 2 classes of finishing my master's as of right now, MBA in project management. And I'm so glad, that I can now stand up with a little bit more integrity in front of those airmen and soldiers and say, an excuse is an excuse, and if you choose to give into it, that's on you. But do not tell me that there is no way for you to go get your education, because that's just flat out not true. So I really appreciate the opportunities that Grantham's given me. I really appreciate the forum that DETC has provided. And I am proud to say I'm an outstanding graduate of Grantham University. Thank you.